Hey everybody, it's Jeff Livingston, and I'm doing a one-off video podcast with my friend Phil Gerbyshak. Did I pronounce that right, Phil?
Yeah, you nailed it, Jeff. Thanks.
All right. Well, I'd hope so after knowing you for as long as I have.
Right?
It's always not so good when you mangle somebody's name. How are you today?
I'm really good, Jeff. How are you doing today, buddy?
Very good. And before we get into your book, let's just ask really quick. Twitter to X, what do you think?
I stopped being active a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Twitter to X is kind of the end. For me anyway, right?
Yeah.
I watch some people are like, well, it's the same stuff, but I just don't care anymore. Like, there's no community, no belonging, none of the stuff that I joined it for is there. If you're newsy and all you want is news and political drivel, hey, it's great, man. It's probably even better because now you can see all the crazies instead of just 70% of them. But yeah, if you want to talk to people, I just think it's dead, man. It's dead for me anyway. But we'll see.
Yeah. When did you go inactive exactly?
Boy, let's see. I stopped being active probably about 3 months ago. Now and then I'd share an article or whatever, but I'll tell you, 19,000 followers, slowly dipping because I don't know if the bots are leaving or if all my friends are leaving or what. And no interaction, like nothing.
Yeah,
no,
I left at 20,000 and
Yep.
was it 20? I think 2017. End of 2017 is when I quit. Yeah,
Yeah.
but same thing. I didn't like the interaction. Whatever.
Yep.
Yep. So Elon killed it, huh?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, he drove the final stake in the grave. Jack killed it a lot too. I mean, it's so interesting. When it was Ev and Jack, it was a great place, man. But I would, if we're really being honest, marketing killed it. Let's just be honest, right? The automation, the fact that everything is scheduled, the real-timeness of it that we fell in love with back in 2005, 2006, that I could post a message out there and you would see it and you'd respond to me, even though I didn't mention you, that went away, man. If I didn't put you on a list, I wouldn't see you, dude. And, we talk and I didn't see you, right? Like, it's just, yeah, it's unfortunate. But yeah, I think marketing killed it. The need for noise killed it. But to be quite honest, there's never money there. It was never a monetizable platform. That's the hard part, right? Like, remember Color? Color came out. These guys got $1 billion in funding, and they didn't even launch because people believed in the people behind it. So it's unfortunate, But at the same time, I'd love to see like Apple buy it, right, and find a way to fit it in the Apple ecosystem more, or something like that, right? Because there are still a ton of users. I don't know that Threads is the right answer. I mean, I'm there, but there's no discovery, no search,
we all got
nothing.
put there where we wanted to be or not.
Yeah, true enough. Yeah, true enough, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so speaking of one entrepreneur's follies, let's get into this entrepreneurship and what you've done, which is pretty impressive. You've built kind of a tutorial, if you would, for people that are trying to go out on their own and start companies, the Zero Dollar Consultancy. Why did you write this book, my man?
Well, I watch a lot of folks put a ton of stuff out there that frankly isn't real good. It's the same reason I started speaking. I mean, I just watch crap out there. Here's 10 tools, and basically they just scrap the about section and share that. And often they're 10 affiliate links, and I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. And then, I really love Alan Weiss's $1 Million Consulting. Really great book, but there was nothing out there for how to start up. So I was like, okay, well, these are all the questions that people ask me. These are all the things that, that I coach folks on. I fell into coaching because I like to help people. And so I'm like, you know what? If I could write a primer that is easy to read, easy to digest, and actually will help folks get started, well, why not? So I sat down on a Sunday, started out with 10 free tools, went from 10 free tools to, kind of 8 or 10 chapters that I wrote. And about 6 hours later, here's the book, like the first version. And it was like 35 pages. I was sending it around to people. And one of my friends says, dude, you should print it, not just send it out as an ebook, because, frankly, people take physical books still today more seriously than they do electronic books. So
it's amazing, right? The words are the same, but
Yeah, it's the same, right? Like Derek Sivers, he charges just for he charges one price for the content, and then he charges another price, like the medium. It's just a little bit more production cost. And frankly, I mean, I wish everybody understood that, but people don't, man. The packaging matters, right? What's the difference between a Mercedes and an IKEA? It's the packaging. Yeah, is there a slight upgrade? Yeah, for sure. It feels a little different, but basically the same. It's transportation.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. I mean, obviously, I'm a little bit of a serial entrepreneur, and this being my fourth personal startup, plus having served as an executive in a startup as CMO, and also having counseled a few and been in junior roles in startups. So I've seen these things, and I've seen them funded, and I've seen them bootstrap. I'm kind of in the middle of the bootstrap. We may seek funding. So one of the things I thought that was interesting about your book was the $0 or little dollar approach to starting a company. And I think there's something to be said about that. Although I do have to say it's not for the weak of heart, right? Like you have to be ready for it, right? So what's your counsel for people that are just kind of, they're a little bit afraid, right? Is there a good reason for it? How do you get them over the hump? Because I feel like your book kind of does get them over the hump.
Thanks. Yeah. So, well, first, I would say, get started on something and don't quit your day job yet. Right? Like, that's the first thing. This whole idea, do what you love and stay.
You should have talked to me 4 months ago.
I know, right? Well, that's the big miss. I mean, if you have a great day job, then stay, right? If your day job sucks, okay, then go. But if you're happy, there's no need to leave. I mean, think of it as a capital infusion into your business. That 100%. First mindset, super important for folks. You can use that as a capital infusion. That's great. Secondly, as far as, we talked about funding. Funding is just money. Well, you can make money, right? So you can get started. You can test it out. And if you have that capital infusion of a day job, well, now you don't have to be as afraid because you know what? The first 6 or 7 iterations probably aren't going to be the last iteration. I mean, Jeff, you and I pivoted 100 times, right? I mean, we just keep going.
I'm reworking my messaging right now because I was too complicated for the market with my messaging, right?
Yeah.
And the worst thing you want to do is talk down to your market.
That's right. That's right. Or talk over their head either. I mean, either
exactly.
way, we ought to talk right.
They're like, what? Where is he?
Yeah, that's right. So keep it simple, right? Keep it simple. Get started with something, and then from there, then be willing to iterate. Be willing to listen to the market. To your point about the market, I mean, the market will tell you what it needs. Yes, okay, you can create a totally new niche. You could, but I'll tell you, that's really freaking hard. And, unless you got a lot of money, it is really hard to make a lot of noise these days.
Yeah, that evangelist route is one of patience, and you have to have a long ramp, right?
Yeah.
I think often the more successful startups, they tend to have something that's new, but it's a new wrinkle, right? It's not like this massive jump. It's just that's a great way to do that, right? Like, even if you look at some of the more successful products in history, the iPhone. Well, we had smartphones before. We had a lot of them, right? But they weren't as good. That was a really great way to do a smartphone. Yeah, same thing with like a startup. So the side hustle thing. When's it time to transition from the side hustle to the full-time hustle?
When your calendar's so full that you don't have time for either one anymore, and you got to pick. I mean, that's the key. There's going to be a tipping point for you. You're going to look at your calendar, and maybe it's, I haven't seen my kids in 3 months. That might be a tipping point for you. I've been there, right? That's tough. Sometimes the other tip is, I'm tired of getting up at 4 a.m. to do the hustle, right? Because, working from 4 to 8 and then 8 to 5 and then 5 and then 6 to 10 is a tough life, man. You can't do it for long. So once that starts encroaching in, I think it's time to really get serious about it and say, you know what? I have to make a decision. Do I want it to stay small and be this 10-hour-a-week thing that I make, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month? Or do I want it to tip? Do I want that capital infusion to be gone so that then I can do this full time? I think that's really the key. And when is that? That's up to you. You have to be honest enough with yourself to say, Yeah, I'm willing to eat ramen noodles and hot dogs for a couple months so that I can do this because it's tough, man. It's
It is.
tough.
It is. You really have to have discipline. I mean, I think that's the other thing too is you're going to walk through the desert. Any startup, that's just the way it is. There's periods where it's good. There's periods where you're working things out. There are periods where people are deciding whether or not to trust you as an entity, not you as a human. And it's often easy to conflate the two, right? You shouldn't. Like you as a business, you have to prove the business value. You have to prove the business, I would almost say resiliency. People want to know that you're going to be there, right? And that you're not going to collapse, that you're not going to disappear. And so it takes a little bit of time. There's always people that are willing to trust you early, but until you get to that point where it's consistent and all the way through, you have to be willing to walk through the desert. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, it's tough, man, and it's one of those things where your resiliency it's an important point. The first dollars that you get are going to be from friends and family. Let's be clear, right? Or from friends of friends and family. I mean, I'm going to call you, Jeff, and say, "Hey, buddy, here's my new business venture," and you're going to be like, "Huh." All right, well, I'm willing to help you try and get a couple pieces of business here, and that's great, but that's not repeatable. Repeatable business is doing great work for people who need that great work. That isn't a referral. The book talks about that first dollar, but yeah, to have a lasting dollar, right, to really go out there, you've got to have a process, even for referrals. I mean, process gets you results. No process, right. No results.
Yeah, and you have to build markets, right? You have to find out where your customers are and start creating that pipeline.
That's right.
And, I think people often underestimate the value of like making sure you actually have a sales and marketing process. And when I say marketing, not like what you and I do on Twitter, like the actual, how do I speak to my customer? Really. That's right. And they may be on Twitter or X or whatever the heck it's called. But yeah, whatever. Yeah. So what about people? I mean, like, how important is it to have a good support network and the people around you? Talk to us about that. I know, it's important to you. So.
Yeah, well, people are it, man. I mean, for me, I really think people are it. So a couple things, though. One, support system first starts at home. Even if you're by yourself, is it your parents, is brothers, sisters? Who is this, right? Somebody that I can count on, a dear friend, whatever. Then that next kind of level of support, that level of people is really then those professional networks that know of you, that are willing to, bounce ideas off of you, that you're willing to share. And sometimes, willing to be kind, but not nice. Kind meaning, dude, this isn't going to work. And here's why. And here's some suggestions to make it better. Nice being, well, I'm just not going to tell him because I don't want to hurt his feelings. So be kind, right? Find those kind people. No, right? So be kind. Find kind people, not nice people. And then from there, then when we think about people, right, they could be freelancers, right? I could find someone who can help me with a logo. I could find someone who can help me with a marketing plan or create a sales process with me. I could find those people, and those are important too, right? And those might, an attorney, it could be a business person, a business, mentor, if you will. Those are important too. Probably some CFO type person that can help forecast some cash flow so you really know what you're looking at. That's kind of that next level. And then you think about an employee. Could be virtual, for sure. Could find a virtual assistant that maybe, can help execute some of the stuff that you think of in your head. It could be, a graphic designer. It could be a virtual assistant. It could be, a fractional salesperson even. But the challenge is, though, when they're fractional, they take longer to ramp. You want someone who's willing to invest, which means that you need cash. Yeah, I need cash, man. I mean, I got to pay you, $5-10 a month to make sure that you're going to be here 40 hours a week, and that's staying power, man. Because otherwise, they quit and stay, and they'll take your money while they're looking for another job.
100%. How about equity? Do you give them equity?
Maybe, right? I think that's an option for you for sure. But you want to make sure that they're in it to win it, right? You want to make sure that they want to win as much as you do, or you pay them more.
Right. And that's also the role of the vesting cliff, right? Where over the 4 years or whatever it is. But
that's right.
With equity is like tough. Like I'm actually giving equity this time, and I have a co-founder who's getting obviously a significant chunk to go through that desert with me, right?
Yeah.
And but that's the value of it, is like people giving them that opportunity to earn more than just a salary at some point, to earn like something that's a little bit more precious, which may be an exit. It may be them having the opportunity to buy the company from you. It may just be straight up profit sharing. But it is something to think about, I feel like.
Yeah.
What about that solopreneur though? How about that person that's just like, you know what, Phil, that's cool, but I don't want to scale. I just want to be me, and I want to have my business, and I like working with myself and nobody else, and I don't want employees, and this is the way I want it to be. You know, I like having that freedom. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that's great. You know, that a lot of that's what I've done. You know, I like the solo thing too, because that allows me to dabble a little bit more. It allows me to say yes to people that I like and no to people that I don't a little bit more, because, you know, it's just me. So my payroll is just me. Now, that being said, right, I got a wife, 2 kids, 3 dogs. I still got to pay the mortgage. Let's not be foolish. But at the same time, I'll eat ramen. They might not. They might not know how tough it is, right? Like,
my wife's eating steak, but I'm eating ramen.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, right? I mean, I'm willing to do that. I think that's important, you know, and really, that's who the book is written for. It's written for that solo person who really does want to get started, right? So that's where you could build a team. We talked about that, but that's years of time. Unless you're fully funded, I mean, unless you've got money that you can invest, it's really, really best to stay small. Just be you, right? Do your thing. You can be way more nimble. You can say yes to stuff you hate. You can say no to stuff or yes to stuff you love and no to stuff you hate. And it's in a lot of cases, it can be more fun too. And then sometimes, you know, you hit those magic mother loads of someone who really wants to keep you around for a while. The challenge is, though, is if you don't have any processes there, you're still going to suffer, because you're going to do the work, and then the desert is, oh crap, the work's done. Now what do I do?
100%. Back to the wife thing.
Yeah.
How important is it to have that number one board member on with you, supportive? I mean, like, I know I couldn't do this without Caitlin. You know, I mean, if she's actually the one that gets me through the desert more often than not. When I start, I mean, like every human being, I get fearful, right? And I'm like, oh man, I don't know if this is a good idea. You know, it's like, oh, shut up. You know, just keep going. Who are you kidding? You know, I totally believe in you. Everybody, look at all this noise. You know, she's like, come on. You know, I couldn't do it without her. You know, she has been with me through all of them. And what an incredible person. And, you know, just really love her very much. But, you know, how important it is for somebody to get that person in their life, that support network, to be 100% on board.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I didn't used to think it was important, Jeff. I had a marriage that failed, that she wasn't behind it. She didn't believe in it. And I quit. You know, I gave a 2-year notice. I left my job first time in 2010. And she freaked out, man. It wasn't working for her. She left. It was done. And It was miserable, man. I had a long time that I was miserable. I gained a lot of weight. I stuck with it. I believed in me. But I had some really,
and you did
brutal
well.
days. I did well, yeah. Now, though, I'll tell you what, Stephanie is, you know, she's my light, man. It's totally different. Totally different. And it feels different. It feels more, you know, it feels more possible. It feels more tangible. It feels like on those days that suck, that instead of having to stay in bed and hide away from the world, I can give her a big hug or have a conversation with her and say, well, hey, babe, you know, I feel pretty good about this, but kind of sucks. And she's like, yeah, to your point, like Caitlin does for you. Like, dude, come on, you're awesome. You're going to get through this. It's not as hard as you think it is. So just, you know, put your big boy pants on and let's go. And that helps, right? And the kids too. I mean, the kids, they just love me. They have no clue what I do. Let's be really clear, right? Because it's, you know, it's kind of esoteric. They don't know. I mean, I got a 7-year-old and a 16-year-old. Of course they don't know. I mean, it's just not their world. So the fact that I can, you know, that I can still be, you know, dad and get love from them and they don't care. I mean, they want time. So that's where, again, that flip that we talked about before, I would do it. You know, it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's funny. I think one thing that and I'll be interested to hear your take on this. One thing I've learned is to like invest time where it belongs, right?
Right.
Like I'm more than happy not to be on LinkedIn one day if I'm like slammed and I got to deal with like kid stuff. For example, my kid has a concert tomorrow. I'm probably not going to be online tomorrow. I mean, I got proposals that are due. I got to get to the clients, all that other stuff. And the marketing activities, again, that I'm engaged in are more macro level. They're not social network specific. So it's important. I understand its value, but at the same time, I've definitely gotten a lot better about prioritizing what matters and investing time. And I don't spend 80 hours a week in my startup. You know, I have a well-balanced life, I think, relatively speaking, enough that I can train for a marathon and still be present for my kid. You know, I can have a life. How does somebody learn, and how did you learn to balance like that? Is it just experience? I mean, what's your thinking?
Well, for me, it was experience, right? I told you, man, I got kicked in the face. The marriage went south. It was bad. And so, and of course, like an idiot, I didn't see it coming. So experience is a big one, for sure. And the other thing is, look at your calendar. You know, what's on your calendar? What's on your calendar is what matters to you. I don't give a shit what anybody else says. If it's on your calendar, it's important. If it's not on your calendar, it's not. So with that, I make sure that I make time to have date night with my wife. I make sure that my weekends actually are completely empty. I don't put anything on my calendar because that way I can just be fully present with the kids. I mean, like, okay, so this Saturday, I'm going to get a haircut, 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Nobody's awake. Nobody's doing stuff, right? The kids are still slowly waking up. I'll be home by 11. It'll be great. They will not miss me. I will not do that at 3 in the afternoon on a Saturday. But again, I'm going to put our relationship first. And again, trial and error, man. I've screwed up more than I care to admit, man. We don't have time to talk about all my mess ups, right?
Yeah, man. We could have this be the roadkill show where everybody's rubbernecking and seeing what you and I did messed up, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So yeah, so and be, ask for that feedback too. Like that's where having a number one, having my wife as my biggest fan, my biggest partner. She's also going to be my biggest critic if I'm sliding, right? If I'm like not spending time with her and the family, she'll be like, dude, put your phone down.
Yeah.
Like it is not that important. And she's right. And of course, like anybody, I sometimes get defensive, but she's right. It doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, sending out one more message, it's not that important. So that's important too. Understanding that, have that reflection. That's good.
That's right. Nobody's going to write startup number 4 on my gravestone.
No,
they're never going to write that on my gravestone.
Yep. And I'm not going to look back and say, Jeff, I really wish that I'd taken 10 more minutes to respond to those emails.
100%.
That's not going to happen. So, yeah.
No. But yeah, at the same time, it is important to know where to invest the energy in that 40, 50 hour, whatever it is, hour week so that the business does stay afloat. So
yeah, don't multitask it, right? Focus on it. I think that's another thing that's big time. Right?
Distractions.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude, distractions suck. Turn off the notifications on your phone, right? Like, Jeff, I'm talking to you. No, I'm not talking to you, right? So, yeah. Right, but I mean, really, turn off the notifications.
Turn off the phone,
because it's not. Or you know what? If you can't do that, then put it in airplane mode when you're focused. Airplane mode isn't just for airplanes. Airplane mode is for focus, and so that's helpful for me anyway. Yeah,
that's actually a key thing I do for important meetings. I just turn off everything, phone, everything. That's it. Nobody gets mad. You're right about the email being the next morning. Nobody does.
No.
Yeah. Very good. So, any final takeaways you would share from the book, and any final thoughts you have for everybody that tunes in?
Yeah. So I got final thoughts. Is it's going to be harder than you think and easier than you think, and by that I mean there's going to be things you didn't even consider that are going to hit you in the guts. The book has got a lot of great stuff in there that can help you. It's $20, right? So it's not meant to be an
It's a
encyclopedia.
dollar if you do it on Kindle, folks.
Well, it's up to $9.99. They'll probably be $1 by the time people, right? Because I'm moving up, and down, right?
See,
No,
that's
I'm testing stuff.
that's my old man looking at the phone late at night. You know, last night I'm looking at Phil's book. It's like, oh man, it's 99 cents. No, you missed a decimal placement there.
That's
son.
right. Yeah, yeah. But
What you were saying? Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I think about it as this, right? And this is where the book kind of helps. Is it's a roadmap. If you're getting burned out, I've even got a chapter on that. That's because I think that's super important. A lot of people
you
miss
can't
that.
get burned out.
You can't get well, and if you do, you got to rebound from that, right? Like you staying in bed, like I did. I had a couple years there where I was burned out, bad. I didn't want to write. I didn't want to create. I didn't want to market. I didn't want to sell. I just want to lay in bed. And yeah, obviously my business did not grow during those times. I was fortunate enough to make it through that. That was worse than a desert, man. That was like Death Valley. But that's because, I didn't have the tools to get better, right? I didn't have the tools to heal. So therapy helps, for sure. Don't be afraid to ask for help. As guys, Jeff, right? Sometimes I think there's a stigma around that, but there shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Get help. Right. If you need a coach, get a coach. If you need a therapist, get a therapist. Who cares? Right. And be willing to ask for help. Most people assume if you don't ask for help that you're doing fine. They don't see you drowning because they're busy focused on their own water. So that's what I would say to kind of wrap it up. And yeah, check out the book, if it's valuable, right? Zero Dollar Consultancy.
$0 consultancy.
Real simple, right? zdcbook.com to get right to Amazon. But yeah, just reach out, reach out when you need help. And, I'm on LinkedIn too, like you, Jeff. If there's something I can answer, questions I can, provide more context on, let me know. Happy to help. I put out tons of stuff to try to help because I really believe that I'm built to serve. So I want to help as much as I can. That's why
You are an amazing human being, man. I mean, it's awesome watching
brother.
you online. It really is. You are constantly helping people out. It makes me feel like a schleprock some days where I'm like, man, I should be doing more of what Phil's doing, but I gotta get this done, And I'm like, oh man, it's incredible. It's really inspiring.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, check it out. $0 Consultancy. We'll drop a link into the video as well as into the social posting that comes with this. Thank you. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Jeff.